The #1 selling place in the entire Sarasota, Florida Greater Metro for 2024 thus far was not Sarasota itself, wasn't even Lakewood Ranch, Florida. However, it was this little swath of land to the south called Venice. In today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly why that happened, if it might be right for you, and everything in between. We're going to talk the real estate, the data, all the neighborhoods, lifestyle, education options, and much, much more. My name is Adam Hancock. You are watching the Florida Relocation Guide, your smartest way to buy, sell, and/or invest in the entire Sarasota, Florida area. If I can help you in any way, please consider reaching out, and let's hop in. Okay, what I'd like to do first in today's video is talk about what actually happened, and then just give you a little context to how I developed these thoughts. So what I set out to do about 2 weeks ago was I was just pondering my personal thoughts on what was going to happen for the balance of 2024. You know, the last few years have been crazy. You know, we're coming early September, going into Q4, into 2025. So what I did is I pulled about 15, as a part of that process, I pulled about 15,000 plus records that are line by line sales that actually happened. So no active listings, just where people, you know, literally spent their money on both of those counties combined. I built tables around trying to make sense of it. That is what I shared on a video about a week ago. The whole video's premise was not Adam's opinion of what's happening. It was where people actually spent their money. The most popular based on people making moves. And you could see how that could apply to you and how you could make smart decisions based on that. So all that to say, it was interesting what came out of it. When you group Venice, Osprey, and Nokomis, it's #1 overall. 2,569 of the 15,000 records. It's the top selling year to date of the 250 plus days I ran. And when I look at those numbers and I look at grouping all that together, the median price average is $577,894. And when I do that grouping, not only is it the #1 seller by almost 500 records, but when I look at the price and you think like, okay, well, it's probably the low price one, right? It's south, it's low price. Average price was almost $600,000. #2 was $485. #3 was $458. So as I dove in deeper and I looked at the neighborhoods as South Venice as the #1 neighborhood that ranked for that individual zip code, and then you got new construction and a mix of the different types, it became very evident to me, which I've been kind of beating this drum for almost a year now, probably maybe more, that Sarasota's history or Venice's history rather, of being like, okay, I'll go to Venice versus Sarasota because it's more laid back, there's less hustle and bustle, it's cheaper because I'm not as close to Siesta Key in downtown Sarasota, and all these kind of things of it being like more affordable because it's further from what someone deems important, is changing a little bit, where it still includes a heavy element of that, but it's moving much more in a direction of people relocating down here, viewing all the actual options, seeing that my budget can work in multiple areas, and I'm going to choose going south of the Sarasota city limits as an intentional decision because I prefer the lifestyle better, not because my criteria doesn't fit in the one above it. In today's video, what I want to do is I want to explain exactly why I think that's the case. So I think this all really starts with location. Because if you're watching videos like this, there's a good chance you're, you know, sitting back home out of state somewhere, maybe out of country. You know, when it comes down to it, a lot, if not the majority of the allure of Southwest Florida in general, you know, has to be the water, right? Like look on a map, you have all this blue and the warm Gulf waters and beautiful beaches galore, north to south as far as you could see, the bay in between. And in a lot of senses, it's probably paradise on earth, especially depending on where you're coming from. And granted, you know, when you come down here, I think it's one of the rare instances where many parts of Sarasota especially not only look like they do online, but potentially even look better. But the big thing to me is that some of the stuff that you may not know now, that you will definitely eventually know, that I already know, is where the Venice, Florida area especially is incredibly compelling. Because in my experience, you know, what you're looking at looks abundant. Maybe you can't call your shots, but if you include Tampa, Sarasota, and the Naples area, and you go up and down the coast, it probably feels like things are going to be fine. Like it might not be perfect, but you could come down here, get somewhat of a neighborhood that you and your family are going to be comfortable with. You'll be pretty close to the beach. Maybe you won't be a mile from the beach, but 10 minutes seems pretty viable. And just because of the pure amount of things going on, there's new construction on the map everywhere, and it does appear like that remotely. Even pricing wise, it feels like there's going to be, with shades of gray, some variety. But depending on how deep you've really gotten with your home search so far, a lot of times in my experience, As you whittle this thing down, it really becomes maybe a one, if you're lucky, two, real binary decision of options you have available. And in that world, the Venice area is the belle of the ball. But in a world where it felt like it was one of 5, 6, 7 total options, it's not near as special. So what people are doing basically, especially historically, is they're coming to like a main part of the town that they prefer. And for Sarasota, maybe they came to like the downtown, Lido Beach, Siesta Key, little triangle area. And then if something doesn't work out there, if it's not perfect, they'll start to look around it and they'll try to satiate the need that they have or the wants they have by going north, east, or south as almost like a junior version of that main element. And Lakewood Ranch became its own ththing, but it started in the same way. It was just east. It was if you go further, you get new construction or you get more space, it's cheaper to do so. And then it became its whole world, but in 1995, it wasn't. It was 1, 2 neighborhoods where it started like that. And Venice was in that conversation as well. It was the South. Go to Venice, it's cheaper because it's not Sarasota. Go to Venice, it's older, it's more laid back if you prefer that for retirement and you don't want to be in the minutia. I look at this more now like people are comparing their plan A of one town against plan A of another town instead of taking their plan A and saying what's the B, C, D, E version. So now what's the Venice adjacent to the coast area versus the Sarasota version, but also versus the Naples version and versus the Pinellas County version versus the St. Augustine version up in Northeast Florida. And with that ceiling, looking at Venice on its merits, how it individually is laid out, it becomes way more exciting. So the biggest beauty of really going south of the Sarasota city limits is the infrastructure. This is an area that, because of the way it's built, can simply provide stuff that a lot cannot. And that is in the fact that it is really, really difficult to get far from the water. If you simply get inside this circle on a map, then whether you go north or south or a little east or whatever it may be, you're still going to have relative coastal proximity. And that's not the same for everywhere. A lot of areas, the new construction home could take you away from the coast. If you say, that's fine, I want to go close to the coast, you can make grave sacrifices in the size of the house, the age of the house, and pay a premium to do so. And this one strikes a really interesting balance that as you cascade throughout the rest of Florida, it's harder to replicate in my opinion. Just to drive home this point a little further, let's take the few different cities and areas that make up the premise of this argument by going south of Sarasota but north of Englewood. One is Osprey. Osprey is the northernmost city in this argument. It's right below Sarasota, but above the downtown Venice area. You're going to be just 6 miles one way to Nokomis Beach, which is a sneaky underrated beach, kind of like a Lido Key. 4.6 miles to the home of Stephen King, Casey Key, and just 7.6 miles down to downtown Venice, which has the 3 beaches that hug it and the historic downtown district. Take another one, Nokomis, which is the southern version of Osprey. 2.2 miles one way to Nokomis Beach, its hometown beach, and only 1.9 miles to downtown Venice. So that's inland going over to the beach. Hop over to North Venice. North Venice is technically east of Interstate 75, but if you look at a map here, which we'll show as you simply go down, look how much closer you get to the water by simply just being south. Not because the interstate changed, it's just the shape of the state itself. North Venice, which is inland, offers some new construction, is going to be Junior Palmer Ranch eventually. 5.2 miles to Nokomis Beach, so still very close depending on how fast you drive especially. And the same exact distance to downtown Venice, which again has those 3 beaches. And then even Welland Park, the anomaly in the conversation, that's where all that new construction area offers, but it's really one of the most eastern locations. All the way over here, maybe opposite on the camera, but that's Northport, Northern Englewood, South Venice, you go in this direction. Even that whole area, all of that offers now and all of it's going to offer in the next 5 years or so, 9.9 miles one way to the beach. A lot of the suburbs of Sarasota, a lot of the eastern suburbs of Naples, especially Tampa Bay, the conversation doesn't even start until after 10 miles. This one's hard to get further than it. Okay, next let's talk real estate. And the reason that I went so incredibly detailed on the geography monologue was in large part due to what allows you to choose where you want to live based on lifestyle first, which is great, and you're not pushed somewhere because of your housing criteria, is due to the combination of both the location and what's great about that, the circle on the map, you're close to the coast, etc., but also the real estate variety enough to satiate both sides of the fence. So you get both, right? Because if not, you choose the location and then at some point you're gonna have some late stage disappointment of you get this and then you lose this. Okay, so let me give you 3 quick examples of ideas that would kind of illustrate making a mountain out of a molehill. These 3 would somewhat represent most people's housing needs, wants, etc. The first one is the new kid on the block at the moment. So say you love Lakewood Ranch, Florida, and a lot of people do. New construction communities at every facet you could imagine possible. Multiple downtowns, not just one, multiple downtowns that built itself for its own community. The streets make sense, it's intentional living, it's pleasant, it's beautiful, tropical, and everything's new. Oldest house in the entire place was built in 1995. Well, what is very unusual typically for Florida is you get closer to the water and you gain new construction. Typically you either go east, Southwest Florida wise, and get land and you get what you're getting, or you go to the coast and you say like, I get it, I'm by the beach, this is beach house, they're old. Well, what they did in Venice is they dropped an area called Welland Park. And it's got some history. I'm not going to explain the whole thing on this particular video. I've done that many, many times. But what you have here is basically south of Venice Island. You have 14 plus new construction communities. The heavy, heavy majority of home builders that are represented in Lakewood Ranch are also represented here. You have Neil and Manatee, Sam Rogers, all of the custom builders for the most part, besides maybe Anchor, everything. You got affordability of villas, townhomes, single family homes, and the like. They built their own downtown called Downtown Welland. It's 2 miles of walking trails. It has a large lake. It has a kayaking kind of outfitters. There's restaurants. It's cosmopolitan. You have all of that. This area is super walkable. Spring training baseball. One of the most golf cart friendly areas in the state of Florida beyond maybe the villages with the Playmore district. So you have all of that. And if you take 14 plus communities and you look at like the waterside district of Lakewood Ranch, this would be maybe a third of the size of all of Lakewood Ranch. You drop to one area. So what it allows you to do is basically it allows you to have communal master plan development and new construction. If you get it close to the coast, usually it's in a silo. So you can take that, drop it here, and you still gain the coastal proximity. You're 9.9 miles to the coast. You have all the beaches and the like. Second example. So that area is lovely, no doubt. With not just new construction, but master plan, large, multiple neighborhood areas, typically there's some sacrifice built in. There's a reason that this one's 10 miles from the coast, the rest are 5. You need land. You can't just jam all these things together that relate to each other on top of the beach. So say that you like the idea of all of that, but maybe you're not willing to go 30 miles one way to downtown Sarasota. So you want a little bit in between. You get it's not going to be right on top of it. You want some Sarasota and some Venice. The thing with Welland Park is it's south of the island and it's southeast and it crosses that Northport Englewood area. So it's Venice's belle of the ball when it comes to new construction, but it's not the closest to also being in Sarasota. So one of the beautiful things about the Venice general south of Sarasota area is there's an in-betweener, in my opinion. And that is going above the island. So the thing about living here, you have the island, you can go here, you can go here, or you can be on the island. All kind of close to the island, but some aren't as close to Sarasota stuff as well. So if you go above the island, you go Nokomis and Osprey, mostly Nokomis, you love new construction homes, you're not as concerned with communal environments right now, and you want to be a little closer, there's a way to satiate that need. 15 miles closer to the Sarasota stuff, which is significant in traffic patterns and all that kind of thing. You can still do new construction neighborhoods. This is only going to get better and better, and still shoot down to Venice, but also up to Sarasota. That's the second one. So that's the idea of being a little bit in between both of the things. So some examples, Toscana Isles, D.R. Horton, one of the highest selling, I think it's the highest selling new construction community on my list. I have to look back, but in the Venice list, this is the highest new construction one once you pass South Venice for the overall sales. Talon Preserve, lovely community by DeVosta Homes, built by Pulte. They have a sister community in Englewood called Beach Walk. Vistera of Venice, that's one of the most happening right now. It's a multiple builders. You have David Weekley, Neil, blanking at the moment, but that's going to be a really family-friendly community. One of the most exciting things announced to this idea is they're calling it the new Palmer Ranch project. I'll try to pop up a photo here. 500 plus homes, commercial districts, communal living in general. I've talked about on many videos in the last 6 months or so that people say Palmer Ranch. When growing up in Sarasota, Palmer Ranch is South Sarasota, like where the golf course communities are. It's a Golf Gate general area. No one I knew growing up considered Palmer Ranch south of Sarasota's actual city limits. If you look at Talon Preserve, the website, it calls Talon Preserve on Palmer Ranch. That community is based in Nokomis, Florida. So I don't know who's doing the lines or whatever that means. It doesn't really mean anything, I guess. But traditionally, Palmer Ranch is in Sarasota's lower suburb. If you go south of that, Nokomis, North Venice, that crossover, I've been saying for probably a year now that this looks exactly like to me, it looks like exactly like Palmer Ranch on a map. And what Palmer Ranch became was, it became a Lakewood Ranch. It was before Lakewood Ranch existed. 20 plus new construction communities at any given time. They're weaving out, it's this whole thing. That's what this area is gonna be. The writing's been on the wall for a long time. You have Aria, Vincenza, Silo. There's already 5, 6, 7, 8 communities over this area. They just don't relate to each other at the moment. That's what everybody loves about Lakewood Ranch, is that these communities don't stand randomly to each other. They come together for communal amenities, events. They were planned at a similar time, so the streets, the way you drive to them makes sense to each other. That area is 100% gonna become this. So the question is if you love Welland Park now, and the location of Nokomis is preferred to you, and it would look like Welland Park in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, would you have chosen it if you could? That's the nice juxtaposition you can take, is what do you want now, what do you want later, how patient do you want to be? Even if you started with one and hopped to the other, then I think that's what our option number 2 is going to become. And my last example is Venice Island itself. So the island of Venice, historic downtown Venice, whatever you want to call it, is one of the only non-barrier islands that we have on this coastline. So if you look at like Casa Key, all the way up Siesta Key, the 3 beaches, Toledo, Longboat Key, Anna Maria Island, as you go, it's beach, bay, mainland. So it's a bigger divide from mainland to the beaches. You know, that little separation, mileage-wise is small, lifestyle-wise is large. The Venice Island area, it just feels so coastal over there. Like you get over there, like everything around it's really coastal. And the big thing is if you're anywhere on the island or like slightly near it, you can almost walk to the beach from 100% of it. So you get there, you got the beach. It just feels like that. It's hard to describe. It's very quaint and coastal, the whole thing. It's also, I don't know if you've seen any, I'll try to pop up them somewhere here, but I've done, I think 2 videos now, maybe 3, where I basically broke down, I ran the numbers for the whole entire Gulf Coast of the state of Florida, which is not just Southwest Gulf Coast, but it's the whole Gulf Coast. So take the whole panhandle and all of that kind of thing, and looked at affordability. If you want to walk to the beach from your house, what are the most affordable places to live? And I love all of them. I lived in Tampa for 10 years, grew up in Sarasota. I went to school in Pensacola, lived in Gulf Breeze. I love all of them. Not equally, but I love all of them. Venice Island is up there with affordability. If you want to walk from your single family residence, condo or villa to the beach, whatever you consider walkable, I consider it a pretty small distance. What is the most affordable in the state of Florida at any given time? Venice Island, I think number 1 on my list last year, was number 2 on the list before that. And you have some affordable places throughout Pinellas County and the Pensacola general area. So if that's interesting to you, this is really, really compelling because you have some of the most expensive real estate that exists just north of you and just south of you in the Sarasota and the Naples area. And for this to exist here under the radar, pretty incredible lifestyle. So I'm gonna let that ride. On my list, it's prospective affordability, so don't get mad at me, but on my list for this year and just year-to-date sales under a small window, the average home that sold was $585,000, all home types on the Venice Island zip code itself. But the Venice Island living, that would be the most compelling thing to me. You have every kind of residence you would imagine, but affordability is the name of the game here. And that's how I would kind of sum up the home market right now in the Venice, Florida area. So with all of that being said, let's kind of wrap this video with a catch-all bucket of sorts of the 3 or 4 other things that would be relevant to you. One of those is lifestyle. I think clearly here, it's not just my opinion, the numbers are showing, the sales are showing, everything's showing that people are making intentional choice to choose Venice, and part of that's because of it being a fringe, and there's some affordability and some perks that come with that. But it's also a lot because of the lifestyle. And the simple way this place evolved, it's going to provide a little bit more laid-back environment, it's a slower pace of life. I've seen people especially leaning into saying that like people are going left for the over-commercialization of things or just commercialization of things in general. And there's a lot of benefits to that. There's a reason for that. Like, we have an amazing place. It can't be protected. Like, people want to come here. But there's people that want maybe like a slower pace of things in addition to that. And Venice, because it was always that historically, provides that. Second thing, what's is interesting here is for an area that everybody's, the median age is older, and that it was the older retirement version of Sarasota, if you can believe that. The schools are unbelievable. And I know I've had some, I've had a couple agents with me that relocated, and then relocated kids in high school that go to Venice schools. And I think it's still incredibly underrated. Sarasota County, which Venice is in, Osprey's in, Nokomis is in, Englewood's in, is the #1 public rated school district in the entire state of Florida. It beat out St. Johns County in the St. Augustine area for the first time. And to have an older area that's coastal, that's beachside, that has some of the highest rated schools in the entire state of Florida is incredibly unusual. Like, if you live on the islands in the state of Florida, typically, a lot of people are commuting off to prep schools in the mainland, because to have the elementary and the high school and the middle school that are public, that are all rated, next to the coast, that are highly rated, it's not super typical. It's usually completely niche. This area is an anomaly in that sense. You have Venice Senior High School, which is not just a good academic school, but an unbelievable sports school. I think it's 5A in most sports. That's on the island of Venice. They can walk to the beach. You have Laurel Nokomis, which is on that line of, obviously, in the Nokomis, Florida area. That's 8 out of 10 in great schools now. It's 9 out of 10 every time I've seen that before it. You have Venice Elementary, which is a 9 out of 10. Just looking here to remind myself. Garden Elementary, which is 9 out of 10 if you're a little bit further south. Pineview, which is the #1 elementary school, I think, in the United States as a whole, it is up in the Osprey area. So that's just one thing to consider too, because if you're seeking that kind of the Panhandle, kind of raise your kids by the coast, or the Wilmington, North Carolina, and you're assuming everybody here is 68 years old, I think it's much more of the company you keep. All these kids live in this area. I don't think it's super common people are taking school choice from Sarasota down south to Venice. And it's probably just the circle that you're living in that determines your awareness of who's also there. Third is just to bring it up, because it's a relevant category for any sort of relocation list, is just work and economics. Venice, Florida, Sarasota included, would not be the place that I would typically recommend as a destination spot to relocate for work. However, caveat, hospitality, obviously there's jobs, there's work, all that kind of thing, but this is a play first, work second kind of town. Venice even more so as you go south of Sarasota than Sarasota itself. But what I've seen a lot recently is the work from home, independent entrepreneurship, all that kind of thing. Venice, Florida, and Naples are unbelievable spots in the country to live in if that is your situation. Because you have the best of both worlds, right? Because if you work from home, why deal with all of the minutia that comes with large industry and commutes and all of that kind of thing? If anyone watching this has done this the 15 years that I also did it, the reason that you're dealing with all of that is because you need it, right? And you either want to job hop or you want to climb the ladder. So you need multiple companies that are playing in that field. If that is not your current situation, at least right now at the moment, then why not live in a town that's based on hospitality first? Even the co-working spots, you're working from restaurants and coffee shops and independent offices and all that kind of thing. The lifestyle benefits of that in these kind of areas, I think, is incredibly underrated. And a lot of the net migration increases we saw from 2020 to 2024 I think are still rippling based on that opportunity. And last is just future, what's going to happen next. I do think that if you look at, I mentioned all this stuff about Osprey and Nokomis, of Junior Palm Ranch and all this development. Look at Welland Park. I mean, they've said many times, I don't even think it's close to halfway done of Welland Park. That corners Venice Island. I've seen renderings, 3 years ago, I wish I could remember who showed me renderings, but I saw renderings of a mini St. Armand Circle, which is Lido Beach adjacent, up in Sarasota, in that South Venice area. I think if you look at Minnesota Key to Welland Park and then even Nokomis, what's available from a new construction, from a build out surrounding the beach, I think this is going to be one of the most compelling spots to move in the entire country, definitely in the state of Florida, because of what's available there that is not possible elsewhere. I think from the Palm Bay to north of West Palm Beach and the Atlantic coast with the Vero beaches and Port St. Lucie and all that, West Palm Beach, I don't know if you could do something like that there. The St. Augustine's a big area. They have Nakati. I don't see that going in that direction. I don't see it happening in Miami. The Panhandle, you have your seasides of the world, but that's a hyper premium exclusive kind of situation. If you look at Seaflower north of downtown Sarasota, you look at this area, those are the two that I think you could create the 14, 15, 16, 20 neighborhoods you need with commercial space, office space, and communal downtowns that make location not matter at all. If you plop a mini suburb that's this big in any area, then regardless of what happened outside of that area before this, it doesn't matter if you have everything you need. Throw a crystal water lagoon in there, you don't even need the beach. That's my prediction of what will happen next. I think it goes south, then it goes north, but I think potentially they're both in the Sarasota Manatee Metro. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's video on the Florida Relocation Guide, your smartest way to buy, sell, and or invest across all of Southwest Florida. I am your host, Adam Hancock, once again. I really hope you enjoyed today's take. If you did and you're not subscribed to this channel by chance, please consider doing so. We have a lot planned for the balance of the year, Sarasota heavy, Florida as a whole, Tampa, Naples, everything that would help you make a decision in our metro here. Beyond that, if you resonate with my content at all, there's a couple things you can do. One is free resources. The sunshinestateco.com will put here. Analytical tools, relocation guides, newsletters. I've been lagging on that. Eventually, I think we're going to be a bi-monthly newsletter, but it's going to be cooler. Continue signing up for that. We will get you that if you're on the email list when applicable, but that is passive. You can do that at your leisure. You can contact us, use it with us, but you don't have to. Just trade you for an email address. Secondly, or I guess two-part, email, call. It's hard to replace asking the right question at the right time. If you call us, you email us, contact form on the website, whatever it may be, you know, you're in the midst of research and you're saying, I live here, I'm trying to do this, I've already done this so far, I'm coming in town in January, what should I do now, what should I do when I get here, how can I utilize you guys, what makes sense, the real estate market's weird, whatever it may be. There's a really, really high chance that we've already done what you're trying to do many, 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 many times recently. We're doing it right now as well. And someone else's learnings recently can be to your benefit. You know, we're in the bowels of deep research constantly. And you know, we have someone on our team that relocated from Canada, Washington, D.C. We have a French Canadian, New Jersey. We have a retired firefighter from Massachusetts. We have a mom that relocated, Spanish-speaking mom that relocated, husband's in the military at MacDill Air Force Base, lives in Palm Harbor, covers all of Lakewood Ranch, all of Sarasota and Tampa Bay. I mean, so what we try to do is we try to, you get me, and we also try to give you someone that's already done what you're trying to do. And that's, I think to me, that's the most underrated, best point of view we could possibly provide, is not just my local perspective of what I'm doing all day, but it's also someone that recently just did what you're trying to do, super relevant to your research. So that's what we view as the art form of relocation, and we found that to be really, really helpful because it's a very convoluted process, as you know, of what you're currently going through. So if any of that's relevant to you, we'd love to help you in any way we can. And thank you guys either way for consuming my content, and we'll see you on the next one.